Right, thank you. So I'm just going to talk about people, really. Incredible Edible is a network of food growing groups. So it can be in a local area. So we have Incredible Edible Lambeth, but it's also a network nationally. So we've been sharing some of our thinking and some of our ideas nationally. And we're not just about, oh, let's plant a few vegetables and have a little vegetable growing club. We're really interested in having some real impact. So we call it three plates: community, learning, and business. And if we get all of those three plates juggling in the air at the same time, then that's how we can get much more impact from our food growing projects. So, community. So, we can have food growing on estates, for example. This is what we've done a lot of. This is kind of where we started in Lambeth. In Lambeth, we're a very densely populated area. A lot of our green space is in between the social housing. So, once we start to animate, to use an edible bus stop term, area, then we get people talking to one another and socialising together. And food is, of course, a fantastic medium for doing that, because you don't just grow it, you also need to cook it and eat it together. Fire station, we've just planted up. This is a Todmorden example, but we've just created a link with Clapham Fire Station, and they are now growing a little bit of food. And it's just another way of engaging. They want to work with schools anyway. It's a brilliant engagement mechanism. They can also help us with our watering in unusual places sometimes, the trees. Another Todmorden example, Edible Cop Shop, Edible Bus Stop, which you know all about. So combined with the community, getting the food growing in unusual places and where people live and work and play, learning, children, already mentioned children, absolutely vital aspect of learning. And I think it is starting to come much more into schools, food growing and awareness of food and healthy eating. It is getting there, but it's not just about being in the school. It has to be outside the school as well. Again, in Todmorden, they're doing some really cutting edge stuff. They have aqua garden, so growing aquaculture, where they're cultivating fish and using the waste fish to grow salads. This is a rural area, so they can actually farm. In Lambeth, we do try to farm as well, but we farm in a slightly different way in the urban environment. But it's very similar. It's not that different. In Lambeth, we do a lot around cooking and eating together as well. It's not just about growing. So this is a project called Cook Like a Caribbean, where people came together and shared stories of the food that they grew up with, perhaps their parents cooked, or in other countries, come up with this fantastic map. There's a lovely video which I would have loved to show you today, but it's too long to share with you. But if you've got time later, go and Google Cook Like a Caribbean on YouTube, and there's this fantastic film. The storytelling, you talk about storytelling, that comes out when you use food as an engagement tool is amazing. And business. So we've done some quite hefty calculations in Lambeth about most of our food, 95% of the food that we buy in Lambeth goes through the supermarkets. None of that money that we spend stays in the local community. So the more that we can localise our food system, the more money we can keep in our, often quite deprived communities. So we've been growing salads, making chutneys and jams, beer is a big one, bread, and We've calculated there's a massive opportunity around food waste as well. So recently we launched a community fridge in Brixton, so that so much food is wasted. I think in Lambeth every person wastes the equivalent of £9 of food a week. So it's just horrendous. So we've put this community fridge really to raise awareness, so people who've got surplus food can put it in the fridge. It's not waste food, it's just food that's in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's often baked goods that the bakers, they only want to sell what they've baked that day, but it's still fresh sourdough bread lasts a week. But also wonky vegetables, that kind of thing, or just half a packet of chilies where you only really wanted two. And then another economic opportunity that is flourishing in Todmorden is vegetable tourism. So people actually go to Todmorden to visit, to see where they're growing vegetables. And we do a bit of guided walks and tours and things. We haven't really turned it into a business yet, but mapping, just creating those links and opportunities for people to discover in the local area a bit more. Something we've been doing in Clapham. And then in one of the areas, Myatt's Fields, Vassal, well, call it, it's sort of North Brixton, two wards, Vassal and Cold Harbour, and it comes right down into Brixton where the market is as well. So quite a lot of big deprived estates. They are actually looking at developing their own local economic plan. And my friend Victoria, who's on the incredible Edible Lambeth board, was going to come and speak today, but she couldn't make it. So she's just given me a little bit to read out. So excuse me if I read here, because what she's done is go so deep into her community. So she started volunteering in the park, ran some cooking projects. I mentioned the Cook Like a Caribbean project, lots and lots of cooking projects actually, and growing food in the greenhouse, completely restored the greenhouse. There's a lovely, just down the road, there's Loughborough Farm, so a big area that is a development area, has been turned into a food growing space, having really built massive community. And so what she says, the lasting achievement of all these projects has been the network of people that's been created. And they all realised really early on that they, rather than just wanting to grow vegetables, they're community leaders, and they're committed to improving the places where they live and the opportunities for people. She says, we understand that the real assets when working with food and are the human beings and the intelligence, skills, commitment and friendships that we bring to the table. I mean, I just think that's such a massive thing to be able to say from a little bit of starting some food growing projects. But what she's been doing over the last 2 years is working with those community leaders who really are absolutely representative, and some of the people who perhaps, lived in the area for a long time, aren't very happy with the council, they've seen a lot of change, and they are now working together and thinking about how they can improve their area for the better. And they're planning to develop a neighbourhood plan, which is a plan for a lifetime neighbourhood. So it's something that really supports and nourishes the people. She said, we're committed to business as unusual, to understanding and reducing the barriers that stand in many people's ways, in the way people making change happen. And we understand that truly prosperous, sustainable neighbourhoods are built on a foundation of social justice. So that's with very little money. It's just people coming together and doing things for themselves. It costs them absolutely nothing to plant a seed, or virtually nothing. And I think these are, they just they've flourished. This is actually Vassal and Cold Harbour wards. So we've done some really quite significant mapping around deprivation. The red area is what we would describe as a food desert. So there's been a lot of discussion over the years about food deserts, what they actually look like, how you define them. That we've got a lot of evidence, a lot of mapping. We're very interested in mapping. And that's all I wanted to say, really. Believe in the power of small actions.